Hello and welcome to the Epic Trash Show, your weekly gaming podcast. I'm your host, Bruce, here with my co-hosts.
Left bumper, right bumper.
Left bumper, right bumper.
Yeah.
I
want to be right bumper.
Yeah,
Well, that'll work from
right bumper,
perspective, I guess.
bumper. I get Chris and Crow here. And if you want to get in touch with us, please hit us up at our email at epictrash@groupnail.com and on the Twitters, the Twitters at Epic Trash Show. Also, please subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Do us the biggest favor.
Dude, we got some bumps this last week.
Yeah,
We got
did.
major bumps.
Yeah, we got one video that kind of took off because the whole world's up in arms
We
about.
got peace bumps.
Oh no.
Oh no! Oh no! All right, so we did get some feedback, or I guess some responses on the questions of the week this week. Or we didn't get. It was on the challenge of the week. This week we got. Our challenge was explode some heads with a shotgun in any game, and we got a submission from Chris Brancato, who said via email, "Hey Trashers, I played Arizona Sunshine last night, co-op with Bruce." That's me. For a couple hours, and in the old mine, we finally stumbled upon a shotgun. It was pretty intense, and how pitch black it was in there. At 6:15 of this clip, there's some headshot action and another good blast at 7:30. It was great. It's super satisfying. Like later on, I didn't show it here, but we swapped and I got the shotgun.
Yeah.
Just run up right in their face, like, BAM! And they're like, "Oh my god, this is so satisfying!" Especially in VR, it's just like their heads are just gone.
Sounds like the Doom VR effect.
Yeah, I could see that. It was funny because that game actually is actually really fun, but it's so clunky at first, you know.
Yeah, it takes a little getting used to. The VR controls are always a little bit weird.
That looked like a really cool game though. Like that was one that I actually wanted to play in VR. Like there hasn't been a lot of stuff I've seen in VR that I really wanted to do, but then Arizona Sunshine with the zombies and stuff looked really cool.
As someone who owns a VR and has played quite a few VR games of different variety, there's a lot of things that I didn't think I would want to do in VR until I actually did them.
Yeah.
So just, consider that, like, I didn't think I was going to enjoy Beat Saber, but it's really fun. I didn't think I was going to really like...
it's just so satisfying, on a visceral level.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things to explore, especially when you get the move controllers involved.
Right, and I mean, that, like I said, that game, I mean, it's a little short. It's only like a 4-hour campaign, but it's got a horde mode in there, so you can get some extra mileage out of it.
How many guys can you group into one party?
I think it's just 2, if I'm not mistaken. But it's weird because of the cameras on the front of the TV, so you can turn around, but you don't typically. You want to face forward, so it's like there's buttons on the front of the controller that like one way or the other, and it'll give you a quarter turn in either direction. So it's like you have to use that, but also turn around.
I think it was square triangle.
Yeah, on the move controller. So it's like it's kind of weird, and then like grabbing stuff is like kind of wonky at first, but as soon as like it clicks, it took me about 8 to 10 minutes for it to click, and then once it's like you get it, it's just like you're in there. So it's so good, moving around feels fluid, and it's like I was actually thinking it was going to be worse than it was, but once it flowed, I was like, this is awesome. So so that's that. And
then we got a question we got an answer to the question of the week too, right?
Our friend Chris, look at that. Yeah, he said, so what game? The question was, what game made you feel nostalgic?
Yeah.
And he said Chrono Trigger from SNES and Chrono Cross PS1 are games I keep going back to. So much good feels in the groundbreaking games. I'm with Chris too. Diablo was a major game in my life as well. And Wahoo Beat Saber. Yeah! Get on my Expert Plus level.
For Beat Saber?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm coming for you, Chris. So... yeah, I have the Chrono Trigger on my phone on an emulator. I'm still trying to work through that game. It's pretty fun. I enjoy it.
So then what are our questions for this week?
So our questions for this week are... What was one of the most aggravating game endings that you've ever played? Like, what really pushed your button and be like, why?
Even doubly so if it was a game where like you enjoyed like 95% of it, but that ending was just terrible.
Yeah.
You just hated it.
Mm-hmm. And then for the challenge of the week, send us a clip from whatever game that you're playing this week. It's an easy enough one. Just get the clip. Clip it. Send it this way.
And don't forget about your epic trash moments.
Yes.
Those always count.
Epic trash. Trash.
Did you guys like that video?
I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. I laughed out loud when I heard him scream trash. It was pretty funny. So, yeah. That's that. I appreciate people actually engaging. It's nice.
Yeah. It is good to get feedback and comments and upvotes and downvotes.
My favorite part of doing this podcast is engaging with the community.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like being ratioed.
Yeah.
I feel like any interaction is good reaction. Is good interaction. I mean, if people like what you're doing, then they make it known. If people don't like, they make it known. It's like, but you know what? That's a lot better than nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but let's just say you had a video that got like 1 million views, but no upvotes, no downvotes, and no comments. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you be like, what the F? You know, you'd be like, even though it got 1 million views, and let's say your watch time was like maxed out. You had a 5-minute video, and the watch time was like, 5 minutes, and like nobody does anything. It's like, okay, that's really cool.
It's like, this is a thing that people said in a video. And that's all I feel about it. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm just. Mm-hmm. Just throwing some shade.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's fine.
Let's jump into the news.
And now into the news. The trash bucket.
Trash bin.
The trash bin.
Yeah. All right. So the first piece of news we're going to talk about Apex and pretty much everything that's going on right now over the past week. And so recently, a lot of players have been noticing an increase in hacking and cheaters.
Yeah,
and so the last report was that there was 355,000 players banned, which doesn't seem like a lot.
That seems like a lot.
It does seem, well, right. But in my mind, yeah, that was the comment afterwards.
Well, collectively, they have 50 million players.
Right.
Yeah,
in the grand scheme, yeah. But that's still
happening. It's still pretty close to 500,000.
That's or probably at least, the bucket for China.
It's almost, I mean, it's about, it's pretty close to 500,000, so
I'd be interested to know how many accounts were Chinese.
Oh, I don't know.
They usually have like the big hacking rings out there.
Well, I think they had the big one for PUBG, but then they were also the largest player base too.
Right, so exactly. Kind of that's why I was like, but yeah, that's fair.
Right, and so Apex has responded to this, and they said they're going to continue to work with experts inside and outside of EA. They're going to try to scale up the anti-cheat, and also they're considering adding a report feature on PC, which was something that the PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds did, where it's like basically after somebody kills you, you can watch the death cam,
right? And
then if you feel like they should be reported. Yeah. I also know a lot of players who just report all the time.
Oh yeah.
But what's nice is in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, I've actually reported players before and then logged in like a day or two later, and it would say, thank you for your report, and this player has actually been banned. So it's like, it's kind of cool in that sense. I don't know. I mean, potentially people will spam it, but I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I would assume that not everybody would spam. So, but the other thing is I guess if you're going to have a report, they're probably going to have to add a death cam, which is something that they don't have right now.
I'm just wondering how big that review team is going to have to be,
Well, I'm sure it would be outsourced to somebody.
Yeah,
I would think. I mean, I don't know.
The only negative, of course, is like if someone gets misreported or something.
Right.
Like if you just have a bad connection. Like,
but that's why you review it or whatever. Yeah. I mean, if you log out over and over again, if you have a bad connection, it happens.
Yeah, because like I have DSL.
I've never heard of anyone getting banned for leaving a game. Honestly,
yeah.
I know we talked about the terms and like that was a thing that they could do, but I've never actually heard anyone say they banned me because I left the game.
That would just be bad PR.
I think so too.
I mean, I've definitely reported a bunch of people in PUBG and like have probably only gotten a comment back saying the player was banned maybe like 5 or 6 times.
Right.
And I have like 400 hours on
Right.
PUBG, so it's like
Yeah.
So some of the other things that are going on is the Battle Pass should still be coming out in March, and nobody really knows what the Battle Pass is going to be. Like nobody knows what it's going to include specifically. I mean, obviously, most people assume that it's going to be skins and then maybe access to the new legends as they come out.
What?
And
I keep hearing about the Battle Pass. Can you explain what that is to me? Because I don't even. I've never I know it's in Fortnite and like all the battle royales. I don't know how that works.
Basically, the one in Fortnite and in PUBG, it basically just grants you access to more skins
That you can buy
and earn.
Oh boy!
But it's like, I think
it's like the ticket to the theme park that they charge you for a ride.
Right. Well, I'm not 100% certain how it works in Fortnite, but I know in players in PUBG, the season pass you get. I'm pretty sure they give you some skins up front when the new season starts. But then the big thing in Players Unknown is you have the ability to unlock different loot crates, basically, with in-game money. And then the other big one is that they have challenges, like daily, weekly, and seasonal challenges. And so if you don't have the pass, you can't unlock any of those rewards.
The rewards, right?
Yeah. So from what I see, it's mostly a reward system. And so I don't know if Fortnite has those challenges because I really never play it. So I'm assuming, but So basically, whenever you complete those tasks, you can get rewards. But like in PUBG, I have some of them I have the challenges done, but it's like it will say buy the Vikendi season pass to unlock.
Right.
And it's there's tons of rewards, and some of them are they're dumb. That's dive into the water 2 meters or something 5 times, and then drop into a certain area on Vikendi, the map. Because when you start, I don't know if you ever played PUBG, but when you start, you can drop into different areas on a map, and then you start the game. So it's a lot of them are really easy, but if you don't have the season pass, you're not going to unlock anything. So, so nobody knows exactly how the battle pass for Apex is going to work yet. The big thing though is that there's been a bunch of leaks about the new season and new things that are going to potentially be coming out, and so the biggest ones are. So it's basically leaks and people finding different codes and stuff like that are in the programs. And so the first one is a flamethrower, the second is a remote turret, and the third big leak is the NPCs in the map potentially being friendly or enemy, which is kind of crazy. And so the one that I don't really care about is a flamethrower. If they put that in, it's okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's just another weapon. I don't see. Obviously it's going to be good and bad.
Yeah.
The remote turrets though is kind of are they going to be how easy is it for you to destroy them?
Yeah.
Because they have caustics, gas tanks that you can just destroy.
Yeah.
And but it's and then how accurate is the turret going to be?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? I think the thing that would be nice is obviously you can use it like a trap. To where if you go into a house, you can maybe put it in the corner, kind of out of sight, and then be over here. And so if they come in and start to push you, the turret will start lighting them up, and then they'll get distracted. Then you can push back or something. But
I would see it being pretty accurate. Most of the time turrets play the same no matter what game you're in.
But that's the thing. What's their range going to be like?
It's probably big because it's a mounted thing. I think it would be an overpowered gun, but the disadvantage is you have to set it up beforehand, and you have a limited range. Right. So it's if you happen to set it up in the right spot, you're gonna own.
Anytime I think about remote turrets, I always think back to Team Fortress.
Oh, and,
right, with the engineer and dude, the thing was so OP. If you could put it in the right spot, it would just tear people apart.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the thing with the NPCs is kind of it's really same thing. Nobody knows anything about it. It's all speculation. They could potentially be. Bot teammates. It could potentially be vendors. It could potentially be recruitable, I guess, aids during the game.
Yeah.
So it's if you have a fire squad of 3 and you unlock something, that grants you like another legend that drops down and it's just a bot or something completely different.
Yeah.
Or something. And I don't know. I mean, and then the vendor one, like the vendor is cool too, but it's like, it's a cool concept, but what happens if you're like trying to communicate with the vendor and trade or do whatever, and you're just standing there and somebody just comes by and like starts to rip you apart?
That's why that's why you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Watch your back.
Right. Or is it like, it would be cool if it was just kind of like maybe like the Call of Duty like slot machine thing or something like that, where it's you just kind of drop and roll. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You roll an item or something like that. That would be kind of neat.
Right.
But
speaking of like new features, Fortnite added another one. They added the ping feature, ripped straight out of this game.
Really?
Yeah, they totally stole it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good feature though.
Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, I think Apex is doing a lot of stuff later, and when I get to talk about later, I actually played PUBG again, and I want to talk a little bit about how it feels playing PUBG after kind of like dropping a bunch of time into Apex.
Oh, okay.
And then so my last thing to talk about for Apex news is that we have 5 new legends that have kind of been leaked or revealed. Okay. Obviously, Octane is the one that a lot of people think is going to come out with Season 1. But there is some artwork that has 4 other new legend characters that I will post somewhere on screen right now. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, they're doing a lot of stuff, and they're doing a lot of the right stuff. And so, I think Apex is, right now, I mean, I think it's I think it's probably the most popular Battle Royale game right now. And so, what I think they're doing is just really good. And, as opposed to some other games that EA has let out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Very positive on that end.
Yeah, speaking of other games EA has let out, Anthem has made news yet again. Not good news. So, essentially, and it kind of pains me because, like, I want to be able to say good things about it, but because it's BioWare, and I want them to do well, but mistakes keep happening. And so this time, they had a update patch, and the update went live, and for about a day, everybody who played Anthem was having a great time with it because they noticed that the loot drops, the frequency was much higher. Yeah. And so they were going through, the end game content missions, and they were getting these loot drops for the more important weapons.
Right.
And the rolls were still fairly consistently bad.
Yeah.
So there's that, but they were at least getting them frequently enough to feel like they were getting something out of playing. And then BioWare pretty much said, like, whoops, and they released a hot fix and removed that. So the drop rates went back down to where they were before, and, like, there was a lot of pushback on Reddit from Anthem players saying, like, this is not the way to go, like, we were having much more fun with this game, like, for this one day. Yeah. And you've pretty much, like, taken it away from us, and, like, there's not much incentive to play. Yeah. So that's what's happened with Anthem this week.
I mean, my argument against that is, like I said before, is that they can't let that keep going, otherwise there's going to be nothing to grind for.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, there was that issue with, like, Destiny, Where in the early days of Destiny, you had
the loot cave.
You had the loot cave because people weren't getting loot enough. They just and there wasn't enough variety anywhere else on the map to get it.
And I guess D3 had that too.
And the other issue was like the first raid, Vault of Glass. Like, a lot of players were getting stuck at level 29, and there was even, like, a meme, like, the Forever 29 player. Oh, yeah. Because, like, they just could not get that one last piece of gear they needed. And so, like, you have to be able, and Destiny, to its credit, like, got much better about that over time. Right. And so that's not to say, like, that they're not going to improve this, but, like, if players are giving you feedback and generally saying, like, hey, we really like this the way it is, please don't change it because we're having fun with it, then, maybe you should listen. Like, it's not going to break your game.
I understand that point. I just think that it would be foolish to let them, like, get... If the drop rate's insane, you're going to get all the stuff. You're going to have it, like... a full loadout in a week, and then what are you going to do?
Yeah, but the thing is,
players will be then on Reddit like, your game sucks because there's nothing to earn.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, there's a difference between like, because not all the weapons, even though they were in the top tier bracket, like essentially the equivalent of exotics in Destiny,
right?
The gold tier weapons.
Yeah.
Their rolls were still bad, so like people would keep on playing it, keep going back, and so like the rate of the amount, the frequency of drops was high, but the frequency of like a good drop was still low. So like that balances it out,
right? And that's I think how you should do it.
So yeah, and like that's how it should really be done, especially in a looter shooter. Like,
right, for sure.
At least you feel like you're getting something out of it when you're playing, even if what you're getting is not good.
Right.
And that's what people wanted.
Well,
to see.
to a point, you quickly see through that though. Like with Call of Duty, they had every drop you got, it was like pistol grip, a new pistol grip that I have to press a button to look at my pistol if I choose to equip it. Yeah. It's like literally 3/4 of all my loot's pistol grips. It's like, but I guess it's better to pick up something while you're playing than not having.
Yeah, I mean, well, you understand like how it works with that reward factor.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you get that dopamine built up for getting something.
Right.
It doesn't even matter what it is. Like you get something.
Right. You get the ba-ding.
Yeah, and like and even on like social media notifications, like, you get that like 5 new notifications. I wonder what that is.
Right.
And even if those notifications are trash.
Yeah.
Keyword.
Trash.
It's still fun to see.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens, and I'm hoping that EA is not pulling the strings on BioWare too much here. And it's always really hard to gauge that.
It seems like they are.
And that's the other thing that I'm worried about too is like how much of this entails the microtransaction aspect,
right?
And just how prevalent, like are they cutting back on the drop rates to try and bottleneck into microtransactions?
Yeah,
because that's not really a healthy way to build the game.
Yeah.
But that's what the publisher wants because they want to milk that money.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like, so for me at this point, it's like I hear that the playing it's satisfying, the combat's good, and it flows well. So if they can fix the bugs with the enemies, and they actually the big thing is if, like you said, if the drop rate's proper, if it feels like it, and it's not, if I don't pay them money, is it going to feel like I'm stuck in the endless grind that I do not have time for? Then that's going to determine whether or not I pick this game up.
I'm not surprised at all to keep hearing that the gameplay is good, because like that's one thing that BioWare did very well with like Mass Effect is like they handle that third person combat perspective very well. That's something that they do excel at,
and I appreciate that because there's not that many games that do that.
Yeah,
there's a few, but
I mean like Dead Space was great, and the Mass Effect trilogy had that over the shoulder third person, and those game mechanics were very well done.
Yeah.
Especially by the third game, like they had really mastered it.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that they know what they're doing when it comes to the gameplay aspect and stuff like that. I want them to balance the game well so that the community can be happy. Like that doesn't mean that you have to shower them with all the greatest stuff all the time,
right?
Because that would kill it.
It would, yeah.
But at the same time, like apparently, most gamers are not happy with it,
right? Which is, I believe it at EA. So
and just as an aside to this, the Division 2, just to get this out there, this will be quick. If you buy the disc-based version of Division 2, you'll have a day one update, depending on which console you're on. And there are some mixed reports on this because they haven't been completely clear. But if you have like PS4, for example, the day one update is like 88 gigabytes. Day one update patch is 88 gigs. So essentially, they printed discs that just tell the PlayStation like download the game. Because the final game file size is 88 to 92 gigs. That's what Ubisoft said. So you're pretty much paying for a disc to download the digital version.
That seems so stupid to me because it's like there's a bunch of customers that don't have internet connections or have crappy ones, and that's why they buy the disc.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying that too. Like I'm out in the boonies, I have DSL.
Right, what am I supposed to do?
And like I'm just stuck.
Yeah.
And like I'll have to wait a week for the update to download in full. So it just seems like a pretty bad way to do it.
I always thought it was a missed opportunity that they didn't start shipping like with USB 3 flash drives. Just you could buy the game for like $20 extra so that you could have the fast install. If you have no internet connection. But I don't know. That seems so crappy. So that's unfortunate. But
yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. I mean, it still looks like it's going to be pretty.
Yeah,
dope,
the game itself looks nice.
So Techland, who's responsible for the Dying Light franchise, they apparently are closing the distribution arm of their business. And the founder of Techland wrote a message to ease people's minds, said, "Don't freak out. We're still working on it." So his message basically reads, "After months worth of market analysis, we started the process of shutting down the Polish publishing distribution department. The process will last until the end of 2019. This only applies to third-party boxed goods on the Polish market. For several years, physical distribution has not been the core of our strategy, which is to develop the best AAA action open-world games. These changes have no impact on our global publishing plans and the development of 2 AAA games we're currently working on, one of them being Dying Light 2. Our company is consistently growing and developing great games. The sales of the original Dying Light are not only not decreasing, but actually continuing to grow year over year. Dying Light consistently reaches new audiences and makes us that makes us happy and shows us we have chosen the right direction. It also motivates us to work hard on making Dying Light 2 our best game yet." So their other game apparently is an open-world fantasy action game that has RPG elements. So they're both in the process, and Dying Light has always gotten good reviews. So I'm excited for the second one to come out.
Does the other one have a title?
No, it's not announced yet. Oh. It's unannounced. They kind of are just hinting at it, but they're gonna. I'm pretty sure they're gonna show something pretty soon. But so in this process, 13 people lost their jobs during the restructuring, but they apparently had some forewarning, and they're getting severance packages, which are better than the Polish industry standards. So, yeah. And Techland's gonna help them find new work. So good on them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a business move, and sometimes that's what happens.
Right.
I don't think it probably has nothing to do with anybody who's working there personally. It's probably
right, and I think that's the whole point why they were basically just saying, we're closing. News agencies, please don't hop on this and be like, "Oh no, is Dying Light gonna die now?" Yeah. It's like, no, we're doing just fine. We don't distribute games anymore. Like, we just make them now.
At least it's not as bad as Activision Blizzard laying off 800 people.
Right, and I think that's kind of what they were like. We're even. Although we're like Polish and we don't have the best policies, we're still helping these people out. Yeah. Because I know like CD Projekt Red or whatever, they don't have the best rap for their employees being treated well or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like they make great games. So it's
they make great games. So that's a
what are we gonna do?
There.
Yeah. It's one of those unfortunate situations. But
yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people can just find work in another. A group of, because if that's their skill set, I don't think shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, tough to say. Yeah. But in other news, the British Parliament has been going after gaming addiction. They're kind of putting together a task force. So last year they announced an inquiry into the growth of an immersive and addictive technologies group They kind of follow the like esports and virtual and augmented reality type stuff is what they're supposed to be covering over. Led by the members of Parliament from the Department of Digital, Culture and Media Sport Committee, they've been investigating connections between gaming, gambling, social media addiction in an effort to deliver infrastructure, regulation, and keep pace with increasing digitization and gamification of people's lives. So they're basically they're like, we know this is a thing, people are starting to play this a lot, we need to make sure that we reduce harm so that people aren't going to get stuck. So they're going to scrutinize the impact of immersive tech, particularly on young people. And they gave this task force a deadline of January 4th, 2019. So the reviews are in, and they're having hearings. So the first session of the evidence hearing for the Immersive and Addictive Technologies inquiry covers the subjects of defining what addiction is within the context of games, treatment, loot boxes, and research about, the industry responsibility on all that stuff. And so one of the main issues they were trying to cover was, that they brought up, is that they need objective data to better understand the issues of gambling and addiction, because they need numbers. But unfortunately, many of the gaming companies are refusing to share these with the researchers because it's not good for business.
Yeah.
So while addressing the committee, Dr. David Zendel from York Street John University said, "We're scrambling around in the dark here, lighting little matches and seeing tiny bits of the picture around us. But they have flashlights. Let us use the flashlights." So a lot of the academics are agreeing that the data they've been working with up till now has been imperfect because they were, open and self-reported studies. So you're asking people, well, how much do you play? And, that can vary. So Dr. Daria Kuss from Nottingham Trent University, she said the objective data is what we need over the long term, and with numbers that give us an indication of where people's problems lie and what we can do to solve them. But academics and the gaming industry, they have an adverse relationship because over the past 20 to 30 years, people have been poking at the game industry saying, oh, what about this violence and their impact on society, right? Mm-hmm. So that's basically where it's come down to, and now they're like, well, we need funding, and people are like, well, is it the public sector's job to fund this? Yeah. And someone's like, well, we need the gaming sector to come help fund this. They need to do their part. But then the counter argument to that was, well, if they're paying for the funding, it's compromised.
I think, and if the gaming industry doesn't want that data out there to how much they're keeping people in their games and stuff anyway, because obviously if these researchers are gonna basically countersuit like that you shouldn't be playing, why would anybody who owns a development company or a publishing company fork over money
to make them look exactly. And so it's kind of a conundrum. Like, I understand the point though, why would you want to, like, I understand the point that you would want to get this kind of data to help, knowledge is power, but who's going to pay for it now?
Well, I think even over in China and stuff, there's they have a lot of that already, where it's they know people are addicted to social media.
Right.
And they have kind of the groups set up, they have treatment facilities set up for people who are addicted to mobile phone, people who are addicted to any devices and social media and stuff like that. And I think it's definitely something to pay attention to. I mean, it's just, it's going to be hard to draw lines as to what is okay and what's not okay, because there's tons of people who are even successful. I mean, look at a lot of the big streamers. I would have to say, if you were going to make an argument about people being addicted, I mean, it's more of a psychological level, you know what I mean? Because it's okay, well, people who are streaming, they may potentially play 10 hours a day, and spend another 2 hours reading news or staying informed on what's going on. You know what I mean? That's 12-hour day that they're spending in video games, but they're also generating revenue. So does that mean that they're addicted because they play X amount of hours a day, or is what is the? Or
is it just their job?
Yeah. Right. What are the defining factors to? Well, unless people are legitimately relapsing from not playing game, or struggling in some kind of way mentally or interpersonally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is I'd like to know why they decided this that this needs to happen. They're we need to regulate this stuff, and it's do you need to?
Well, I mean, was there ever?
There's definitely some serious issues that can arise from addiction to anything. You can be psychologically addicted to eating the foam in your couch cushions.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
It's a real thing,
right? But it's a lot rarer than I would say.
That's much rarer. But my point is just that that you can become psychologically dependent on a variety of stuff, and video games in particular. There are a lot of people who playing a game is a rewarding experience.
Right.
And some people depending on like age range or maybe like a cultural difference or something like that along those lines, are more predisposed to becoming a little bit more psychologically dependent on the reward system of a video game,
right?
Or maybe the psychological addictions toward gaming, just like psychological addictions toward eating foam out of couch cushions,
right,
comes from a some other issue that's going on, like where if you want to just escape, like I used video game addiction for years in my life because I hated my life situation and I wanted to get out of
escape,
it.
Yeah.
And like I didn't, I had a lot of like existential dread because I'm an edgy boy like that.
Right.
And like I just I would rather be off in a video game like shooting zombies or something than to deal with like getting up every day
And it seems like that is more common these days. You hear about all these kids with anxiety and like having trouble interacting socially and stuff. So I guess there's a point to it. But now, I mean, they put this task force. They gave them a year, and they came back and they're like, "Yeah, we don't have any data. We can't actually gather real data, and we need help."
Yeah,
with
that's definitely a conundrum.
Yeah, so that seems to be where they left it. They're they said, I think the gaming industry needs to play its part, needs to take responsibility, making sure it's not polluting the world out there with stuff that's harmful.
That's the same thing that they did with like tobacco companies.
Yeah.
And they told them like the tobacco companies have to fork over like a huge portion of their profits to research toward cancer research and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird scenario, but like you have to, if you're the tobacco thing is a little bit different though, because that's like you can get cancer. Yeah. You can get like and it affects a lot of people negatively in their physical health. But like I don't know if there's really enough of a problem here to really warrant pulling money from a video game company or something like that to do that.
Right.
So yeah, it's a tricky position to be in, and the EU is like really weird about stuff like that.
They are, like Article 13 and 11 and all.
Well,
that.
that's was that UK? Because the EU and UK are a little bit different.
Oh, they are a little bit. Yeah, I think you're right. That's UK.
Speaking of the UK though.
Yeah.
And to touch on a thing that we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
There was a lot of backlash around that Rape Day game.
Oh yeah.
And it was pulled from Steam.
Oh yep.
And the spokespeople at Steam basically they were petitioned and to the point where they couldn't.
Well, it wasn't just the EU or the UK. It was a worldwide.
It was pretty global. And
outrage for that.
I guess I'm not surprised.
I think it's funny that it's pretty much the only reason this even became a thing was because the title Rape Day.
Yeah, it was pretty much all in the name.
Yeah,
well, I think with the name was definitely a flag, but I'd say the content is the nail.
But the thing is that the story wouldn't travel as far if the name wasn't what it was.
And that's the thing is like if you know about these visual novels that they're called, it's just pictures that are like choose your own adventure, but there are so many of them that are super rapey already out on the store that nobody pays attention to because it wasn't Rape Day and getting coverage. You know what I mean?
And the developer came out and said that it was meant to be a dark comedy to
of course they did.
To introduce to like normalize sexual assault in games the way that violence is normalized in games.
Right.
Which like it's kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's just like a play to get away from being like the edgy boy developer,
right? Or
if it's to or if that really was his point. Like, it's hard to say. Like you can never really tell with these things.
And honestly, I mean, we're not supposed to give our opinions, but in my opinion, I don't care if the thing's sold or not. Like people. As long as there's an age limit on it, like
they're still going to make it. The guy even said
exactly. It's going to be on sale. If it's not on Steam, it's going to be somewhere else. And some people can go and play it. And you know what? They're not. The argument was made in the comments by a lot of people. They're not real people. This is not real. And then it's like, well, yeah, but you're fostering these. You're living in that space. That's not good. It's like, well,
But the counter argument to that is this: that like if you play Hitman. Are you
living in that assassin space, right?
Yeah, so it's I kind of get where the developer's coming from a little bit with that, and it does kind of make sense. And that there are definitely some games that do explore that kind of violence.
Yeah.
And they do it in a way where, like, it's meant to make the player uncomfortable.
Right.
It's meant to make you, like...
Which I honestly kind of appreciate. Now, this specific context doesn't really do it for me, but I've had my edgier days, played tons of stuff that's danced that line that's very close to the stuff that this is, and it's like, I'm still here. I haven't raped anybody.
Yeah,
it's like...
Well, I mean, look at Manhunt. Like, that game was made, like, pretty much as like a... kind of like a video game version of a snuff film, you know?
Right.
And that's what it was made for. It was made to be, like, you know, weird and kind of questionable in that sense, and that's why the sequel got censored.
And the same argument can be made about games and violence altogether. In fact, it's constantly being attacked, just gaming in general, for its violent content. Yeah. It's like, oh well, if you're gonna play these violent games, you're gonna become violent.
And that was just debunked recently again with another study.
Right, just recently.
Video games to violence.
Yeah, in fact.
Well, go ahead.
Is that they, like, I give you the details about this one, is once again, because this is constantly happens, that people get outraged about some violent game, they say there's a correlation between kids who play violent games and how aggressive that they are. So they went out and actually did the research, and there's an associate professor at Oxford University and a senior lecturer from Cardiff University. They did this study which looked into the hypothesized connection, between violent video games and aggression, and found no positive correlation between games and behavior. What a surprise! It's been done to death. The results weren't what they expected, though. They actually thought they were going to find something, and they said that the studies did not support our prediction that there are statistically significant links for relating violent content to adolescence and aggressive behavior. So, because there was another study done recently that actually had linked those, so they were cross-testing it to see, and they took, basically, it was a study-based.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah, they took this one that they did took 1,014s, half male, half female, between the ages of 14 and 15, and then asked them questions about the games that they played, and then asked their caregivers about the behavior that they had after playing them. And that was one of the many tests that they did, and then further testing found that the observed effect relating violent gaming to aggressive behavior, but was both statistically and practically insignificant. So they took another test where they rated games with a score between 0 and 3 based on how violent they were, and then they combined the score with how much time was spent playing, and then tried to correlate that with their behavior after the fact. And again, there was no connection. And then they did another study where they replaced the scores with the ESRB ratings instead of the numbers, and similar findings. So it's time and time again they get
For core gamers, this is nothing new.
Right, exactly, because we have to fight this all the time.
Like, there was big court fights in the early '90s for Mortal Kombat,
right?
And
Marilyn Manson
the ESRB, and then there was the what was that plumber game? It was like that video.
Mario?
No,
Mario.
It was not that plumber game, but there was plumbers don't wear ties.
Oh,
it was a really weird game where it was I don't know. I don't even want to get into it.
Okay.
It was one of the games that were put on blast next to Mortal Kombat 2.
Right.
And or Mortal Kombat and then there was Grand Theft Auto that was put on blast, and there was and it's been every few years this whole thing keeps coming back around again.
Yeah, and now
it's always the same out of touch politicians who just don't know what
or worried parents with the satanic panic of the 90s. Yep. You know what I mean? Oh, they're playing D&D, they're going to be possessed by the devil.
The thing is the reason why this does not surprise me is because I have two kids, 7 and 3. And my son, he's old enough to play Mortal Kombat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I do let him play it.
Right.
And
that said, he's pretty mature for his age.
He is mature for his age, but after taking some an adolescent psychology course and seeing and interacting with enough other kids, you start to realize kids know how to, like, they enjoy fantasy, but they know how to separate reality from fantasy.
Right, that's what I always said.
On their own.
Yeah, when my parents were trying to say, now there's a difference between what's real and what's in the game. I'm like, what do you think? I'm an idiot?
Yeah,
it's on the screen, and you're here. Like, what this? But apparently some people...
I mean, some kids, sure, like, you know, like, for example, like, kids doing, like, pro wrestling moves to each other. Like,
right.
If you don't know how to do it right, you can get hurt.
Right, and
that's one thing. But, like, compare that to, like, you know, if you're playing a fighting game or something.
Yeah.
Like, the kids still know it's a freaking game.
Right.
And they're not going to try to, like, do a fatality in real life.
Right.
Like, it can't even be done. It's so impractical. It's just dumb.
Challenge accepted. Challenge of the week.
Chris is over here like, I can do it. Like, let me show you.
Oh, I just thought it'd be, it's like you can still try.
You could try, I guess, but
yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's just be responsible for your kids. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So, like, as far as Rape Day goes, like, just to touch on that, because there is one thing that really matters to me when it comes to the discussion around this game.
Yeah.
Is that, like, I understand the controversy of it.
Sure.
I understand why Steam pulled it, and I don't even fault them for it.
Right.
Like, they're a business; they got to do what they got to do.
That's their right.
It's just fair enough. Yep. But what I don't like about it is that now there's these politicians making these, like, crazy, enormous, all-encompassing kind of claims, like saying things like, "Oh, rape should never be in a video game."
Right.
Out of, like, backlash toward this game, and it's like,
right.
If you go down that route.
Right.
Then you might as well just eliminate games altogether, because you can't have any more GTAs, you can't have any more, like, Red Dead Onlines, or, like, Red Dead in general, you can't have any more Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Because, like, eventually it'll all become bad. And we've seen them try to attack the violence aspect before numerous times and try to censor that.
Yep.
And so if now they're just going at it from a different channel. So, like, imagine if that picks up steam. If that picks up steam, then it'll just be the same people from the 90s who failed, doubling back again to say, like, well, if you're going to get rid of rape and sexual assault in games, then you might as well piggyback onto that and say, like, no violence either.
Right, and that's frustrating. I know they tried to do that with that Detroit Become Human after that one trailer. Because there was that domestic abuse scene, and it's like that's a mature game for mature audiences that tackles hard things that make you feel some sort of way, because that's what the author or the developers, that was their intent, is to make you feel and to challenge you as an adult. You know what I mean?
And the reason why I specifically am worried about it, and because people might say, like, oh, you're being hyperbolic here,
right?
But my response to that is that the people who make the legislation in office, they don't play the games.
Right.
They don't understand context.
Right.
And, like, the same thing happened with Count Dankula. The guy makes a joke, and he's like still about to go to prison for it 2 years later.
A joke.
So,
I can't believe that they try to throw him in jail for a joke with his dog.
Yeah,
that's so dumb. Yeah,
and context doesn't matter
Nazis
anymore.
Are bad,
and
that's the joke.
And now we're entering this age where politically, where it's, like, suddenly becoming a matter of, like, context is irrelevant now.
Right.
So if context is irrelevant now, and you have you combine that with what's going on with this attack on this game specifically, which could open up the channel to all the other games
from all these people who are out of touch and outraged.
Yeah, it's just bad news. Like, is it maybe hyperbolic? Is it maybe a slippery slope? Perhaps. Yeah. But still, it's still a concern, and it's always going to be a concern for me, because I like my games to make me think.
I agreed,
and that's what I want them to keep doing.
Right. I don't want.
And if it's always sunshine and rainbows all the time,
right,
then it's not fun.
Well, I mean, it could be, but
well, I mean, like, sunshine and rainbows, like taking your joy.
Yeah. So that's actually probably a good transition, because we need to get into that.
Yeah.
You played that game?
Yeah, I played up to the end of Act 1, so I played the first character's story arc. And I don't mean to keep taking all the talking time here.
No, you're good.
But, We Happy Few, I got to play that. It was marked down to $40. I think it was actually $30 at Walmart at this point, so it's been marked down a bit. I was really fascinated by this game when I saw the clips from it and everything, because I like the themes that it explores, like the Orwellian kind of fictitious happiness that goes on, like the forced happiness effect and so on. Mm-hmm. And that does play a role in the game. And the story of Arthur is kind of personal. It's a bit more of a personal journey of this guy who is basically everyone is on Joy, and there was a war happened. The game takes place in the 60s, and it's a retro-futuristic style game. So, excuse me. And you kind of learn more and more about the situation, this alternative history that occurred after World War II happened, and what the British did with their society, and the reason why it ended up the way it has become, with like everybody on this joy medicine and stuff.
Yeah. And
it's really interesting. It explores the themes pretty well. The only issue that I had with it was that there were a couple issues, but like the biggest issue was definitely the hardware, like the way it ran. Like it didn't really run very smoothly, and I think part of that was due to the procedurally generated maps.
Okay.
So that definitely adds some replayability to it. Like, you know, it'll change the locations of things. It'll change the map layout, the routes of things. So
now, how does that work with a narrative game like that? Is it going to be?
Well, there's certain things that are essentially like hard coded into it.
Sure.
So like you're going to go from A to B. It's just that the channel to get from A to B is going to be maybe different.
I see.
And so like and there's also different narrative pieces that you can pick up that are randomly placed throughout the map for the character. And like you'll find this floating mask, for example, that you can just go up to, pick up, and it'll give a little bit more of a snippet of the backstory behind the character.
Gotcha.
And so that way the map can be procedurally generated, and you'll still get more of a fleshed out story as you go, if you come across those pickups, or you could ignore them. But I definitely appreciated the whole concept behind it. It was a little bit hard for me to get behind all the extra missions. I'm not quite sure why. Like, I don't know if it was really the game's fault per se, or if it was just that I was having a hard time engaging with like the game world. But the side missions and stuff, I just really had a hard time caring much about them. Like, I really just wanted to plow through the main story and get through that. And usually I tend to take my time and explore more things, but for some reason or another, it was just not really hitting the right notes for me to go out and explore.
Now, was that now, were you on the joy while you had the side missions, or was it kind of that gross world? Because like, what I'm trying to get at is that like, a lot of times like games that keep you in the world, like Witcher or Red Dead, that are these big open worlds that's like, I want to spend more time in this world because it's awesome. Whereas is this like a more oppressive thing? It's like, well, get me out of here. Or was it just they couldn't be bothered?
It's interesting you say that, because like basically everywhere you go feels oppressive in one way or another.
Right.
And so you're perpetually like, if you when the game starts as Arthur, you start out as someone who's a downer, who basically like joy lost its effect, and once you're a downer and joy no longer works, you get booted out of the society. And most of the time. Most of the time, like you go on vacation, which could mean like either you were killed or you were just kicked out beyond the gates and exiled, and like and everybody else just gets told like, well, they went on vacation,
right?
And the other funny thing about joy is that when you take enough of it for a long enough period of time, you lose your memory. So like people just kind of forget that other people even existed,
right?
And because like people who are a nation that is always happy is a nation that has no history. That's one of the themes in the game.
That's like super Orwellian.
Yeah, and which that's one of the things I really enjoyed about it. I really appreciated that. And there's definitely some areas of the map where you have to take that joy, and it's very, very interesting the way that they implemented that, because it's a little bit Silent Hill in a way, because like you take the joy and everything looks happy, and everything looks like sunshine, rainbows, everything everywhere, like butterflies, and everybody's walking around all chipper and stuff like that. But then once the joy clicks down and wears off, then you go into joy withdrawal.
Oh no.
And you start looking like a downer. You start looking sick, so you have to take another joy, but you can overdose on it too if you take too much.
Oh no.
And so you have to kind of balance all that out while you're navigating through the areas of the map that require you to be on joy. Not every area does. Like,
sounds like we need to ban this game. It's teaching kids to be drug addicts.
So the when you get kicked out of the society in the beginning of the game, you actually end up going to a town that's completely nothing but downers, and they can't take the joy anymore. It has no effect, and so everybody's just like looking miserable everywhere, and you have to you pretty much have to wear like tattered clothing. If you wear like proper clothing, they'll attack you. So you have to blend in. So like you have to wear tattered clothes and stuff. So there's definitely some really interesting gameplay elements. There's some crafting. There's a skill tree and so on and so forth. So when you get off the Joy though, everything goes from looking happy to looking like you see what's really underneath all that. And like in these towns where it's looking all pretty and chipper and stuff, when you're on the pill, once the pill wears off, then everything starts looking what it really is. Like the buildings look dilapidated and decaying and everything like that. Yeah. And so there's a lot of really interesting narrative in what's not being said.
I see.
If you know if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're using the world as a story beat.
Yeah, essentially. So it definitely explores some cool Orwellian ideas, and I would, just because of the gameplay aspect, because I downloaded an 8 gig patch, and it still wasn't enough. Right. And one of the issues that I had with it was because of it being procedurally generated maps. I think that was the cause. When I would run from like A to B, if you go too fast, then the game will suddenly like cut you off and put you in a loading screen. Yeah. And you have to wait. It's like sometimes you have to wait only like a couple seconds. Sometimes you have to wait like longer. Right. And it's noticeable. And that can kind of get a little irritating after a while when it's happened too many times. But overall, it's still worth it to play through it. I've only played the first act, so I only know the one guy's story so far. I'm probably going to keep going with it just to complete it and see the full scale to give it a more fair assessment of the narration. But as far as like the actual gameplay goes, it's just a little too choppy. Like the frame rate kind of slows down, it gets sluggish. It just doesn't play too well.
What's the action like?
Do you kill people?
You can certainly kill people.
Did you enjoy it?
While I was on my Joy, yes, I did.
That's got to be interesting.
It's very interesting. And
I mean, what is the gameplay reminiscent of? Like, if you had to compare it to another game, it's like what? How does it play out? Is it?
Well, it's funny because like the UI is a little bit of a mixture between like Fable-ish and Bioshock. Okay. There's definitely some Bioshock influence to it. Okay.
That's what it reminded me a lot too, because it has that older but futuristic.
Yeah, it's
like
a retro.
world.
It's a retro futuristic.
Right. It reminded me of Bioshock, at least the newer one.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely similar to Bioshock in the way it's been designed in that sense. Same like time setting of like the 60s. And it's got a little bit of Fallout touches to it too, like the post-apocalyptic looking world in some areas of the map and broken down cars and stuff like that. But the combat mechanics, it can be a little bit overwhelming. Like it's not a game where you're gonna rush in and like take out 10 guys. Right. Like you have to be more calculated. It's more of like a strategy game where you got to kind of play ahead a little bit. Okay. And you got to think ahead, like gather some supplies. I see. You can have a weapon and stuff. You can handle maybe like 2, maybe 3 guys at a time, depending on what skills you selected. Yeah. But I didn't choose the combat skill tree. Like I went all sneaky mode, right? Like I typically do. I see. But even with the combat upgrades, like I still think you'd have a pretty hard time if you're trying to deal with like multiple enemies.
Right. So it's not really satisfying combat. It's more like I'm just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Get through it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like you're gonna want to run more often than you're gonna want to fight a lot of the time. Because if you try to stand your ground and fight, it's not gonna work out well.
I see.
So, but ultimately, overall, like especially if the game is only like $30, is it worth $30? I guess that's kind of up to you. Like if you like that kind of narration, then it could be if you're willing to overlook the kind of like lag spikes and choppiness and that load screen issue. Yeah. Then it can be good. I mean, this was a Kickstarter game, so like right. You can't expect like perfection. It was published by Gearbox though. Yeah. But I give them a solid effort for it. It was definitely a very full.
It does look like a novel game. For sure.
Yeah. It reminds me of like the kind of like world we live in now, where everybody's kind of like, on drugs, or they want or at
Really,
least like
though,
pharmaceutical companies want people to be on drugs and your life will be better.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, when I saw the trailers of the game coming out, like, that's what it reminded me of the most, was like,
Yeah, they're definitely saying something. with
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was interesting, but I think the same when I saw it coming out, or it was kind of like, it just seemed more of a narrative thing that you were getting through, and not as much of as like a combat thing.
Yeah, it's
and I
definitely-
love me some good killing. So
Yeah. Speaking of killing, were you going to talk about Apex at all?
yeah, we can. I was just gonna pick it up and just say, because I was actually playing Apex, which has a lot of killing in it, and I
Yeah.
kind of like it. Actually, the one thing I don't like about Apex is the time to kill. I feel like is a little bit long.
Yeah.
But I did just come from was playing PUBG before, but it was just interesting because I'm still really enjoying Apex, and like I always, whenever my one friend gets on, we always want to get on together, and then and it's just way more fun. I played a couple times by myself, and it actually put me in with seemingly more people that were more around my skill level. My friend is like, he's dumped way more time into it, and he's
Yeah.
like, he's way better than I am right now. Like,
So do you think they're using skill-based matchmaking then?
I think they're trying to. I don't know. I'm not
It's
sure how
good
that.
and bad sometimes because the
Yeah.
connection issues. If it doesn't
Right.
have a big player base, then you
Yeah.
get connected with
Well,
people. Your skill group, but they're all halfway
I don't.
across
Yeah,
the
I
world.
don't think that's an issue with Apex right now.
Yeah.
But the one thing is that we actually decided to play PUBG again the other day, man, and it was like super uncomfortable.
Why?
It was just because it's just such a long game.
Oh yeah.
Like
'cause
every
it's
match
shorter.
is so long, and it's like
Yeah.
Apex is such a streamlined version of basically the core mechanics of PUBG and
They like
the
Blizzard
core
find
game.
it.
But and then Black Ops, the blackout mode,
Yeah.
the Black Ops battle royale mode.
Yeah.
And so like it was just super uncomfortable to go back and play PUBG, and like I thought I was going to be really really good because like my fast twitch skills were like what
Yeah.
I've been practicing on, and like no, I just
You
didn't
don't
do
get
very
in those
I didn't do very good.
engagements, right.
Well, it's just so much more of PUBG is just so much more of a simulator, and it's just so much more
Yeah.
of a kind of like, you know, a little more critical thinking and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
It's interesting how sometimes that skill set doesn't really translate from one game to
no,
another.
it went, yeah, because it was even hard to get into Apex for me, because like in PUBG it's so much more about like weapon control and more of a methodical approach to the end. I mean, obviously when you get in the smaller circles, like in the end game, it's like, yeah, your fast twitch is going to be there, but like throughout the game it's much more positioning and it's much more planning and stuff, but it's just so slow.
Yeah.
Like we were just running. It just felt like we were running forever.
Yeah, it's a big
and
map.
the one thing that's just really funny is like in Apex they have the ping system, and F is to ping an enemy.
Yeah.
And in PUBG, F is your action and pick up items.
Oh.
So I'm like constantly
Pressing the
hitting the
wrong
wrong buttons. Yeah.
That's frustrating. That
And then,
can
like,
be painful too. I
Because
know.
that's what happened when I started
Pain.
Apex. Is like when I started Apex, I was constantly hitting F to grab stuff, and I would constantly ping enemies.
Yeah.
And it'd be like my team would be like, "Is there an enemy there?" And I'm like, "No, I was just trying to pick up some shotgun shells." Sorry. And then it would happen again like 3 or 4 seconds later.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, body shield.
Keybinds.
Sorry, bro. Well, but the problem is in you can't switch it over. Like, you could, you know, make it more like PUBG, but like when I went back to PUBG, you can't hit E because E is the interact button in Apex. But in
I always spend way too much time rebinding all my keys.
in PUBG, E is the lean, which is like kind of an important control.
Yeah,
But it's just
and
I mean,
PUBG,
it's just uncomfortable, and it's just like Apex is so much cleaner. Like it's just built so much better.
Yeah,
and
but
like
I
I
mean-
said, everything is just streamlined. Like I mean, your games are like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it
max.
is nicer to be a little shorter. Although I mean, Apex isn't without its faults. You heard about the hitbox issue they
With
had?
Pathfinder.
Yeah, well, it's not just Pathfinder; it's everybody. Like if you see, well, Pathfinder is the obvious example here. But if you look at this image here, it's like it's stupid how big Gibraltar is. He's massive,
Yeah.
and like this one, what is this? This is the I forget what the name.
Gibraltar, and then
What's
Pathfinder.
the Pathfinder, and
Yeah.
and then you got
Wraith.
it's not Wraith. Yeah, Wraith.
Yeah.
She's like so tiny. The hitbox is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Wraith is ridiculous too, because she has like basically like the rift ability, and so
Right.
she can, like, if you use her one ability, she basically goes into like another dimension, and you can't be hit. But it's like you do leave like a trail where you're running, so people can follow you and stuff. But it's just like for you have basically invulnerability. You can't shoot anybody, but like you know what I mean. You have invulnerability for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then they have the portals and stuff too.
At first, I thought that like with Gibraltar that was by design. That I just assumed he had a bigger hitbox because he's got a shield.
Yeah.
But the shield does not make up for the hitbox. You know, it's not that OP.
It's okay, but yeah, that is how you play Gibraltar, and not a lot of people play him.
Right.
But like he does, I think if they weighed him a little bit better, and it's like he does have like an airstrike, which is really dope. That has like a really nice AOE effect,
right?
Or AOE attack, and I mean it's just
he does that is not. Can you kill your own teammates with that? Because I feel like I've done that.
You can kill yourself. Yeah, I don't know. I just try to stay away. I actually play Bangalore a lot.
Oh, okay.
Which is someone with a smaller hitbox, but her passive skills, like when people shoot at you, you double time.
Right.
You run faster, so it's like, and she has the smoke grenades, are just kind of nice, and then she has kind of like a mortar mine, like these mines that shoot down or whatever, like kind of explosives, and then they sit down for a little while and then they explode.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's just it's just a leaps and bounds for the battle royale genre and stuff, and it'll just be interesting what season 1 has to come, or what's going to be offered there and stuff, and there's just a lot of stuff, man. But like most of it's all cosmetic. Like I don't feel like the loot crates, and I don't feel like the skins and all that stuff. I don't really feel like they affect the game.
I think they did it right. I'm happy with it because it's like you want to look cool with your friends. You spend a lot of time there. It's worth paying.
Yeah.
So hopefully they make enough money to keep it viable for them to keep making the game and improving it.
I think as long as they do the same thing, and like if they take the kind of notes from the Division, or not the Division, Rainbow Six Siege. Mm-hmm. It's like if you keep it like that, I mean, you're gonna be good because Rainbow Six Siege is still a huge shooter, and it's like everything is pretty much free. I mean, if you play the game enough, and it's not like, they give you incentive to play because 4 times a year they're coming out with new maps and new characters. So it's like, what, I don't know how. I mean, I guess you could do it 6 or 8 times a year, come out with new content, but it's like that's a little hard. Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's like they definitely give you. Rainbow Six Siege definitely gives you reasons to play and reasons to grind. You know what I mean? It's just, how much time do you want to spend in the world, I guess, but
I mean that's the goal. The devs want to.
I think it'll just be interesting to see who can, if somebody can come along and take the place of Apex. Really, at this point, I think they're going to be the hot spot for at least another few months. And so I think they're going to take it up. I think
games just keep getting better, man.
I think they're going to take the limelight up just as long as, if not longer, than Fortnite did.
Yeah,
and I hope
Fortnite's still big, but they're sweating for sure because they went
down a lot.
Their Season 8 Battle Pass is free.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they made it free. They're like, don't leave.
You can't stay on top forever.
Right.
Yeah, and I know, there's other new games that come out that I know I haven't even heard about. Kind of something, what is the Isurgen?
Oh, that's not a game, but so that's the proof that we're living in the future now. It's an AI neural network that's basically based off like Google Images. Mm-hmm. So what it does is it uses AI to look at an image, and then it redraws it in HD textures. So they're using this to remap a bunch of old school games with HD textures. Yeah. So if you look, like this is like pixel art type stuff. Yeah. That's like the original art, and then after they put it through the pass, it turns it into like painting style.
Wow.
Like there's this couple of these are just really impressive, like the way that they can scale them up. From like
what game is this? Is this something of Mana?
This one is Nearest Neighbor, I think. These are all from a game called Nearest Neighbor, but it's like you can see pixel art and then now it's painted. And this one's like from an old school game. They're just retexturing with HD textures now. They just run it through this filter. So that's like a thing that all these people are now like, if you can reskin Doom or whatever. It's like a mod for all these old school games that you can just like download the HD texture packs.
That's really cool.
And I know, I was super impressed. I'm like, we're living in the future.
There's a lot of technology.
Like, that's ridiculous.
I had a feeling that something like this was going to turn up eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember your grandpa was like, "Can you enhance a photo?" And I'm like, "We're not living in the future. I can't just enhance." But then
When did he ask you that?
we are a couple months ago, and that's how I kind of found out about this because I was looking for Google image enhancement. That I was like, I don't think you can do that.
This is basically just kind of like a lookup table for basic corrections.
Well,
I mean, this is a lot. That is kind of like has a lot to do with sharpening and clarity and stuff, and it's like changing.
It sounds like it's intelligently like adding more.
Right. Well, it's like one of the things. It's like a lookup table. It's like if that, then this, or whatever. Like if these artifacts are here in these pixels, then this is what needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I mean. Is like you're. I mean, yeah. It's just creating more contrast in the deep dark shadows, in the highlights, but then also like in the midtones.
It's almost like it's like
it's just a lot more shading, because look how deep the blacks are,
right?
And then look how much more white. Look at the difference even in color. It's like you have a lot brighter whites in some areas and a lot deeper shadows,
right?
But then you also have that separation in midtones.
Yeah, well.
So if you wanted to be accurate, talking to whose grandpa was it? Or yeah, I mean, you could have said yeah.
Well.
You could always. Is it a digital image, or is it?
No, it was So he wanted me to find a tower. He took a picture from an airplane in like I don't know, way back.
Oh, really?
And so, like, it was back when he was in the army or whatever or something. And he's like, there was a tower, and I took a picture of it, and you can see it in there. And I wanted to prove to them, because they don't believe me, that there's this water tower there. Yeah. And it's like, he's like 2 miles up in the air with an old school, super low res picture. And I'm like, you want me to turn this speck into a water tower for you?
I mean,
I can't. I'm not a magician, sir.
Yeah,
give it another 60 years, maybe.
Maybe, and that's
but
the thing.
The only problem is, like, if the artifacts really aren't there, like, if you really, because you could always just scan it in,
right?
And then you could always scan it in and then enhance it digitally.
Yeah,
and it's just like
that's what I tried to do to the best of my ability, but it's just.
If you're talking about a speck, like
right.
If you're talking about a couple pixels with it, you know what I mean? It's kind of like
right. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, it's not. We're not there just yet. Because I mean, if you look at some of the faces on these, there's like the occasional like, if it's super low res, they will butcher those faces because it's like that's the best they can do with these. Yeah, they're not the best sometimes, but you know what I mean. It is what they do what they can with what they
progress.
Yeah, exactly. It's still impressive.
Well, I think you just need to go in and then you almost need to like remap the textures and stuff, or at least basically remodel, create new models. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
that's how they did the RE2 remake.
Yeah.
Just rebuild the whole thing from bottom up.
Oh, yeah.
And they should do it a lot more with other games.
I'm just happy that this is a thing now, that like now you can go and download mods for your old games, and it's like you remember them with nostalgia vision, and you go back and you're like, oh! But when you go back, it's like your nostalgia vision has come to life. You're like, oh, this looks like I remember it.
And nostalgia sells, man. It really sells.
It does.
People love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were loving that RE2 remake.
Yeah, it was good until Thomas the Tank Engine came and ruined all of the walls. I've seen it. It's ridiculous. And they have a mod where they turn Mr. X into Tom, and he's just it's scarier than Mr. X. Let's be real about it.
Say, if that were like actually a thing in the game, like on the console version, like officially from Capcom or whatever. If that was the first thing I had seen instead of Mr. X, I probably would have been just as scared. Or more.
No. Does it play the song when he comes to?
Yeah, and the trolley horn sound effects and stuff.
Oh my god, that's funny. All right,
I can't tell if that's better or worse than the Mr. X and the Speedo mod with the flip flops and the sunglasses.
No.
Which one do you think is worse?
Oh god, they're. I don't know. They're both horrifying for different reasons. One's my childhood, and the other's my eyes. So, anyways,
you want to wrap this up?
I think that's it. This has been an epic trash podcast.
Trash.
I don't know. We're workshopping the end here.
See ya.
Deuces.